evening. Welcome to the Monday, November 18th City Council meeting at 6:30 p.m. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Ash. Counselor Campbell. Here. Counselor Devine. Present. Counselor DeBona. Present. Counselor Harris. Counselor Liang. Present. Counselor McCarthy. Present. Counselor Minton. Present. President Kane.
Present.
9 members.
Please stand and join me for a moment of silence. Please use this moment as you will. Please turn to the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of
America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, please read the open meeting law.
Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, first item on the agenda.
2024-139, order home rule petition, Quarry Hills extension of existing lease.
Okay. I think tonight we have representatives from the Quarry Hills Associates to give a presentation on the proposed extension to the existing lease. Kevin? Okay. Please introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, what you're going to talk about, please.
Can you hear me? Good.
Yes.
All right. Council President Kane, thank you very much for having us tonight. My name is Kevin Mason. I'm here on behalf of the QHA team to provide an update on the items and the self-identified obstacles to growth coming out of the many meetings, hearings, and discussions dating back to November of 2022. Tonight's agenda. So tonight I'll walk through, as I mentioned, the obstacles to growth, followed by we heard you. So from November of 22 to current, we have not stopped listening to feedback, concerns, areas for opportunity as it pertains to the lease extension and obstacles to growth for investment at Quarry Hills. Next, I will provide an overview on the future development opportunities, including conceptual renderings, and then lastly, answer any questions you may have on the above. Before I get started, any questions? No? Good. Okay. So as you can see, in November of 22, I think we came here and we presented, and in that presentation we had mentioned that there was a few obstacles to growth, so that we would not have any significant investment at Quarry Hills or on Raschuti Drive until 1, traffic safety concerns had been addressed, 2, customer parking and overall business flow was drastically improved, and 3, once that happened, projects to support growth in food and beverage and events would then be, considered for investment. When you see this presentation that I have for you tonight, I think you will see that everything that we have mentioned, from traffic safety to parking and projects that invest in food and beverage and in the events, it has been addressed, or strategic projects are in place to address said opportunities. Next slide. So we heard you. So additionally speaking, through the many meetings we had over the last few years, we've identified the following themes as takeaways of said meetings. 1, public safety is a concern on Raschuti Drive. 2, the condition of the Quarry Hills trails and signage. 3 is the drainage conditions on the ball fields and the soccer fields. 4, COQ, City of Quincy-led audit of the QHA. And then lastly, the term requested as part of the extension. I'm happy to stand here today and confirm we did hear you from a City Quincy perspective, and we've been working collaboratively with the Friends of the Blue Hills, the City of Quincy councilors, with the many people that we talked to over the last 2 years to address some of the concerns that I mentioned above. So I'm going to walk you through each of the items that we have here. So first up we have is public safety. So this is a huge win. It's a project that was 10+ years in the making, where the base of Raschuti Drive was a problem area for anybody that traveled the Raschuti Drive. So whether you're living in the apartments there, traveling to Granite Langs, the Q, the Quirk area, traveling across Raschuti Drive it was not an easy thing to do. So working in concert with the state and the local governments, I can confirm, one, the light is in place, and two, as someone that travels up that road every day, it's significantly improved over it was. So I believe it is a temporary light. It's there for the next 2 years, but it's got a permanent fixture. At one point in time, I believe there was going to be cantilevered over, but now, as you can see in the pictures there, it is a permanent fixture. I think we're just going through traffic studies. So significant improvement there, and that was the basis of everything that we had mentioned before, with starting at the bottom of the hill and working all the way up to the top. We'd have to improve the safety conditions at the base of the hill to support any type of future growth. The second we heard you is the trail conditions and the poor signage. So we implemented a semi-annual maintenance plan, and that is in the language of the new lease. This was a collaboration between the Friends of the Blue Hills, Parks and Rec for City of Quincy, and the DCR to come up with a maintenance schedule that would help the navigation of the trails themselves. We worked, again, with the same folks to design, fabricate, install wayfinding trail signs. We had a ribbon cutting a couple weeks back on that, and then lastly, a strategic partnership with the Friends of the Blue Hills to promote the Blue Hills themselves. So it's an underutilized chain of trails, and we want to work with Jen Klein of the Friends of the Blue Hills to make sure that we're promoting the proper use or more use of the trails on the Quarry Hill side of things. Next, as it pertains to the soccer field, so we committed to maintaining the infields on a 10-year periodic maintenance cycle. So they will be rebuilt every 10 years to make sure that there's the skee ball, the pitfall that goes in from the infield into the outfield. So those will be rebuilt. On top of that, the drainage, which was the major concern from the 2022 meetings between the soccer fields and the baseball fields. There was a supply chain issue coming out of COVID. That has been remedied as of spring in 2023. The next item, after some discussion, specifically with Councilor DeBona, we had looked at the clay infields that we had on the fields themselves, and the flooding and the amount of games that were canceled due to the pitting and the flooding inside the dugouts themselves. They were replaced with concrete dugouts, and the batting cages also are concrete. So that's what the pictures you can see there are. And then also, we refreshed the stone dust in the common areas around the 4 baseball diamonds. One thing that we heard pretty consistently was the ability to financially audit the QHA. So that is currently in the lease as it is, that the City of Quincy has the opportunity to exercise that provision at any point in time. It was exercised in the spring of '23, and the audit was completed by Sullivan and Powers and was confirmed compliant. So no observations, findings, or anything of that nature. It was a successful audit. And then lastly, the amount of term requested. This was another hot button thing that we heard from the many discussions that we had with the people of the City of Quincy. We have reduced the extension from a 99-year lease extension down to 50. As you can see, or I hope you can see, much work and collaboration has gone into the resolving and closing out of a lot of these action items. So going into the QHA lease extension itself, so this is basically a gap analysis, or more or less the highlights that we'll walk through from the last lease to the proposed lease extension. The first of which, as I just mentioned, is the 50-year extension to the current lease terms. So that is walked down from 99. The next is the Lions Turning Mill that is excluded from the lease. So in the last lease, that property was still part of the QHA. Now it's being turned back over to the city of Quincy. The trail signs and access, so we added into language of the lease the installation and maintenance of the trail signs and the paths themselves, as I mentioned before, with the semi-annual grooming of the trails. The next would be a provision or an option to purchase a portion of the leased premises, roughly 12 acres, for development of a hotel. The next is reconditioning of the playing fields on a 10-year periodic cycle, which is a recommendation from the Parks and Recreation from City of Quincy. And then lastly, another, probably could have been part of the last we heard you, but the formation of the Quarry Hills Advisory Committee. So these are the highlights from the new lease extension. The next is, why does QHA need a lease extension? This is pretty simple for me, and I hope it's pretty simple for you. Granite Links has reached its operational capacity. So any continued economic development requires a significant investment in long-term financing. So walking into the development.
Kevin, while you're there, sorry, can you just elaborate on that component real quick?
Sure. So on the financing perspective?
Yes,
so,
please.
Absolutely. So when I walk through the development opportunities we have in the coming slide, you'll see that these are massive capital expenditures that require good size term to be able to get a bank to finance them. So if we don't have the term on the lease, then it's less likely than the bank would be able to finance said term. So when we walk through, go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm listening.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. When I walk through the projects, it's more of a holistic site improvement plan where we look to optimize the entire footprint of Quarry Hills. So it's not any one of these in an isolated event. It's holistically the upgrade of Quarry Hills in general.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. For development opportunities, we have a boutique hotel and spa, and I will go into detail of why it says boutique. A refresh of the Granite Links Tavern, weather agnostic upgrades of our super seasonal venues, parking lot improvements, and facilities maintenance upgrades. So starting with the parking lot expansion. We contracted Crocker Design Group in 2023 to complete a mitigation study for the parking lot. The recommendation coming out of this was that we needed roughly, I would say, 300 spaces to maintain the growth pattern that we see. So there's a two-phase approach here. The first phase is the top picture here, which shows an optimization effort to realign the current confines of the parking to parallel and perpendicular to true it up. That gets us probably about a net 15 increase. And then the phase two would be twofold. It's structured parking at the base of the hotel, and then expansion of surface level parking, which would be cantilevered over, is this a laser pointer? Is the laser pointer on here?
Yeah.
Right there. So it'd be cantilevered over this section here. So instead of building up the surface, we would cantilever over and increase the parking that way. The hotel project. The feasibility study that we conducted came back with 110 rooms. It's a 110-room hotel with a covered walkway as an enhancement from the hotel to the ballroom, and 150 additional parking spaces coming from the garage. So that's the structured parking I was just talking about. This is the number one piece of feedback that we get from our events team and customers. We lose out on a lot of, I would say, more turnkey events at Granite Links to, say, the Cape, the Islands, Boston, because we cannot holistically accommodate all the wants and needs. So from, think of a wedding. Guests arrive from out of town on a Thursday night. The wedding may be on a Friday night. They do a brunch on Saturday morning. So because we don't have that capability or a hotel on premise, we lose out on some of the bigger, more turnkey events there. Consequently, on the other side of it, from a commercial perspective, corporate retreats, this is a perfect destination for that. We cannot accommodate that. We can accommodate certain elements of that, but if we were going to have a retreat location, including a hotel, we could keep a large corporation on premise for multiple days and keep them entertained. The tavern refresh, so this is more or less modernization. So the tavern was built in 2000, I think it went live in 2007. It's still in great shape. It's a beautiful tavern, but we could stand to do a modernization of the tavern and really play on the city view. So if you've been to the tavern, the city views are, I mean, they're fantastic, but I'm not sure that it was designed to really overlook that, and it's to the best of its capabilities. We want a strong focus on the event space and seasonal outdoor dining experience. So in the renderings we have here, it shows off of the veranda room, an outdoor area that would be about 150-ish seats. The cantilever is over the quarries and gives a fantastic look at the city skyline. The patio is between 2,500 and 4,000 square feet, and it also does an expansion of the veranda room, which gives us additional events capacity. Seasonal business. So anybody that's been up there, you know that there's the pavilion tent. It's a one-story structure that is super seasonal. We would be adding potentially a year-round weather agnostic location that we centralize for or utilize for more of the events to get probably 2 to 3 extra months out of the year. Right now, the tent closes between beginning of October and November. So this would be a permanent structure that would be able to encompass more weddings and events there. And just to give you a couple of shots before I go back to the thank you slide, these are some of the taller renderings so that you can see what the hotel outlook would be. So the hotel would be located in the area known as the Sed Basin. As you come up the hill to Granite Links, it's on the right-hand side. It is a steep incline. It was used for construction runoff for water. It's no longer relevant for that case. So we would be building up the surrounding areas, putting in a retaining wall, and that's where the structured parking in the hotel would be. So just from a site perspective, I wanted to be able to see it. So when I spoke before, I was talking about the master planning of all of Granite Links. When you look at the projects in aggregate, it would look something like this. So you can see from left to right, you can see the expansion here. This is the outdoor seating area for the tavern, and then the weather agnostic location for weddings, and then the hotel in the background. With that, any questions?
Thank you. President recognizes Councilor Liang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the presentation this evening, but I just want to make it clear about process, and I think we're aware of it, but just to reiterate that this will not be voted on and moved on tonight because we do have to move this into committee for a full discussion as well as a public hearing first. I know that there will be another one that you're at as well, but for us, we do need to have a public hearing within committee, and so in order to get that ball rolling, I'd like to go ahead and move this into committee so that we can schedule it later on.
Sure. Thank you, Councilor Liang. Motion moved to ordinance. On the motion, President recognizes Councilor DeBona.
I'd like to second the motion and also on the motion, if I could speak, if I could. Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Kevin and the Quincy Quarry Hills Associates for coming in tonight. I know a lot of stuff that's been out there over the last 2 years that folks in the audience here tonight weren't aware of the facts here tonight. Like, for instance, the 99-year lease going to a 50-year lease. So it changes a little bit of the dynamics, as well as a lot of the mitigation process that happened over time, over the last 2 years. I know the traffic light at the bottom of Raschuti Drive was a big topic. I've said to the folks here that we really can't move forward until we fix this light. And with the help of Senator Keenan, State Representative Bruce Ayers, the state, Mayor Tom Koch, with Chris Walker, and the collaboration here of the City Council, Ward 4 councilors, Palmucci and now Devine, we worked on getting that mitigation. I travel up to the ball fields at least 20 times with all the practices, close to 30, 40 times a season. And crossing that intersection was very, very dangerous. So putting that in and installing that and seeing how it's worked in the last few months, it's been fantastic. So the 99 lease going to 50 years, the traffic light being at the bottom, the fields. I've been on the phone with Tom O'Connell many a times about the ball fields not having the proper irrigation or mitigation of the flooding, and a lot of those issues have been resolved. The dugouts, there's new dugouts that are put in over the last year. I thank you for that. I don't know if he's in here tonight, Steve Perdios, him and I have been down that field. I've been now the last 4 years coaching my kid, and over the summer as well with the travel baseball. We're up there a lot. And just getting on the phone with you and talking about that water mitigation and you performing your duties, thank you. And then also the walking trails. I know folks in the audience and many other people have gotten in my ear about, there's not proper signage up here, and just recently you've put the signage in, and we've had a nice ribbon cutting. It's nice to have you guys at least react to what we're expecting from you. So I want to thank you for listening to us and listening to some of the folks, because we took a lot of their ideas, their concerns, brought it to you guys, and you guys have fulfilled a lot of them. I want to thank you. I also see in there the Lions turning. That is not in there. Is that correct?
So it was taken out of the lease, so it's going back to the city.
It's going back to the city. Okay, so that's not in the lease anymore.
No.
Okay, it's another provision that we need to know. I think tonight, basically, we're not going to take a vote tonight. It's going to go in the ordinance or whatever. I think we need to get the facts out there to the public, to the papers, to everybody, so everybody knows this is a new proposal. The other proposal that was put on the table 2 years ago is now off, and we have a new proposal sitting in front of us tonight. So it's changed. So I think the public needs to know that. I think the papers need to know that. I need the TV stations, whatever it is, social media, whatever case may be. Just get the facts out there, the correct ones, and don't try to slide it. Now, I've been on the council now since 2015, first elected 2016, and we used to get pounded with the downtown. We used to get pounded all the time. Oh, yeah. What are you going to do? Now look at it. We're working on our second outdoor ice skating rink, which has been fantastic. I envision you guys working with us, the council, as well as the city, on doing stuff for the public. And we've done it down here in the downtown, and all the naysayers against Mayor Koch and the vision of the city council, what we've done over here, I predict you guys can do the same thing. We want to work together collaboratively. I heard that right from the beginning. So before we get into any discussions for the future, I just want the facts to be out there for the public and everybody just to know where we're at today, rather than the old 99-year lease. So with that, thank you, Mr. President, but thank you for coming in and explaining everything tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor DeBona. President recognizes Councilor Ash.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Mason. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for bringing this presentation in. Similarly, I do think it's important to get the facts out to the public. I know we have a community meeting scheduled. I believe Councilor Campbell's hosting it December 3rd.
Correct.
At the Links at 5:30. And then I don't know if we have the ordinance committee meeting confirmed or?
Not yet.
Okay. I think it's good to have these presentations to go over the issues, the work that's been done over the last year to address and mitigate those issues. I did have a few questions.
Sure.
Just information that I think would be, again, good to get out to the public sooner than later. I know this morning I read an article in the Patriot Ledger that iterated this would be a hotel with condominiums potentially. I didn't know if you were prepared to address that aspect, or if this is the proposal, if, the renderings of the hotel are the proposal in front of us.
So there would be two paths, right? So if we did option to buy, that we propose to put condos on top of the hotel. But if the option to buy was not exercised, it would just be a hotel. And the feasibility study proves out both ways.
Okay. And I know you've addressed the issues that came out last year, one of them being the audit. Within the presentation, It says was the audit done by the city or by Sullivan and Powers?
The city contracted Sullivan and Powers to complete the audit.
Okay. And then the last question I could think of, but again, I'm sure we'll be discussing everything over the next few weeks. I know the Quarry Hills Advisory Committee is something that you're looking to institute, which I think is great. Do you have a plan, or is there any thoughts of who maybe would serve on that committee, or what that formation would look like?
Absolutely, yep. So it will be a cross-functional group from the voices that we heard over the last couple of years. So there'll be Ward 4 representation from a commercial attribute, from a residential attribute. I'm the executive director of the Friends of the Blue Hills. There'll be members of the Quarry Hills team, a counselor at large, the Ward 4 counselor, and then representatives from Marina Bay Management. So I believe there's about 9 people in total.
Great, thank you. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ash. President recognizes Councilor Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Kevin, for your time here tonight. I do want to compliment you on listening. I think that's kind of the most important part for me going through this. I think it's, hearing what people are saying, but actually taking action. So that's very much appreciated. I guess I just had a few structural questions and more kind of timing. If this were to go, do you have a time frame? Do you have a staging? Are there phases of things? If all of it or none of it is approved, what is your timing?
Sure. So there'd be further due diligence, right? First, it's got to make financial sense, right? So the terms, right? We're not quite there yet, although it does look to be, the economy does look to be turning, and everything would stage from there. So as a reminder, right, we're not immune to the normal permitting process. So we would start from there. There'd be due diligence between the city and the Quarry Hills team to make sure that the project is feasible. Then we'd have to work with the DEP because it's on a capped landfill and take that stepwise approach. It's probably, I would say, 18 months of due diligence from that perspective, and then before we'd be able to break ground when financially fit.
Do you expect there to be a lot of environmental issues there?
We don't.
Okay.
But we don't know what we don't know. So we have to follow the stepwise approach, and whatever comes out of that, we'd have to remediate or mitigate as a factor.
Mm-hmm. And the Friends of Blue Hills, have you had any discussions with them? I know you have them in here. I know that they showed up at the unveiling of the trails, the signage, and they seem to be, very appreciative of what you did. How much are they going to be involved in the whole process here?
Sure. So as I mentioned, they'll be on the advisory committee. We've talked about the baseline project, not in any detail. This is the first time we've talked in great detail about any of the development projects, but they were supportive of, I would say, the evolution of Quarry Hills now that the safety factors are mitigated and we have the trail signs. It's being more utilized than it was, so they were encouraged by the progress.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Campbell. Okay, there is a motion on the floor to move this to ordinance. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Madam Clerk, please also advertise when we do schedule this ordinance committee meeting, when you all will come back for an additional presentation and discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next item on the agenda, please.
Number 2, 2024-140 land order taken at 1384 Hancock Street.
Motion to move to ordinance made by Councilor Liang, seconded by Councilor McCarthy. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Number 3, 2024-141 order adoption of Mass General Law, Chapter 203C, Section 54, the prudent investor rule.
Okay. Tonight we have our city's treasurer.
How are you guys?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. All right, first of all, thank you for having me. So my first order before you is looking to adopt prudent investor guidelines pertaining to the city's trust funds. As a reminder, the trust funds consist of perpetual care, flower, and scholarship funds. These monies are invested according to the Massachusetts legal list by our investment advisor Bartholomew, who we have here today. The Massachusetts legal list governs municipalities and requires by law to invest only in a limited number of approved investments. The legal list is comprised of 22 securities representing only 7 of the 11 investment sectors. These securities were chosen years ago and are not routinely updated or reviewed. Names on the list include General Electric, Unilever, Bank of America, Eli Lilly, Hewlett-Packard, and Consolidated Edison. While these investments are generally considered safe, I like your face right there, they also limit the ability of fiduciaries to diversify their portfolios or take advantage of higher return opportunities that might be appropriate for long-term growth. The FY24 state budget includes a change to these standards for investment of trust funds in municipalities and adds a local acceptance provision that allows investments accordance with the prudent investor rule. So by adopting this rule before you today, this will change how Bartholomew may manage our investment portfolios, still with an emphasis on sound long-term decision-making, but the ability to broader diversification. So nothing as exciting as Quarry Hills, but it certainly would give us the ability to change some of our investments, again, within just the Quincy Trust funds. So thank you for your consideration. Of course, open to questions. We have Chuck and Michelle from Bartholomew who can dive a little bit deeper into the investment guidelines if you guys have other questions.
Motion to approve? Okay, motion to approve made by Counselor Liang, seconded by Counselor Campbell on the motion. President recognizes Counselor Minton.
Good evening. Thanks for coming. Just one curious question for you. Do we invest in China?
So the securities that are listed here are not Chinese securities. So again, it's a list of 22 names. We certainly have some international exposure in some of these trust funds. We were actually talking about it in a meeting today. It's very, very small. It's negligible, but it is something, that's a point that we've been looking at throughout some of the city investments and what's our Chinese exposure. So it's certainly something that we've talked about.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I would love to just see some more information or hear something from, I don't know you, Bartholomew, or whoever your representatives are, but just would love to hear a little bit more about the composition of the current trust as it stands.
Yeah, so I mean, I can certainly defer to Bartholomew to dive in, but it's literally the legal list. It's
That's
22. That is it.
Okay.
It's 22 names. So think about what we know about the S&P. It gets rebalanced. Names are added. Names are removed. This is a list of 22 names. It's stagnant. It's very rarely reviewed by the state legislature. So this is why Prudent Investor really gives us an option to get out of that list of 22 names. So think about our retirement portfolios. You would never put all of your money in 22 names. So it seems silly that we would do that for the city. So we're really looking to broaden that.
Okay, well, what about, I guess, like the performance to date?
So the performance today, I think I pulled October 31st numbers. Our yield was at 2.36%. So again, because we're limited to 22 names, it really restricts our performance. So these are long-term investments. Taking the handcuffs off a little bit could help us. When you take a step back and look at the portfolios, it looks like performance is underperforming benchmarks. And it's really because you're handcuffed to the legal list.
Okay. So is there a target threshold that we're seeking? I mean, 2.36 is not remarkable by any means. So is there?
You can make more in like a Marcus, like a high yield savings account.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I can certainly defer to you guys to what you're looking for performance.
Especially the comparison for the other cities and towns that have adopted this, how their returns have gone up.
Thank you, Mr. President. Currently, since the law was passed by and signed by the governor last August, just alone, we've seen over 3.5 dozen cities and towns that have now adopted the prudent investor. What I think you could see down the road, once the account is fully invested, you could see returns similar to your OPEB account. And that's what the target would be, in that 5 to 6% range.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. We have a motion to approve by Counselor Liang, seconded by Counselor Campbell. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Ash. Counselor Campbell. Yes. Counselor Devine. Yes. Counselor DeBona. Yes. Counselor Harris. Counselor Liang. Yes. Counselor McCarthy. Yes. Counselor Minton. Yes. President Kane.
Yes.
9 members.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Number 4, 2024-142, order adoption of Mass General Law, Chapter 200A, Section 9A, disposition of unclaimed property tailings.
Okay. Madam
Thank you,
Treasurer.
guys. So the second vote before you today is pertaining to our tailings account. This is also referred to as abandoned property or unclaimed checks. So you can think of this like the fine mass money for the city of Quincy. Tailings can consist of payroll checks, vendor payments, refunds, or any other check that the city might issue that was never cashed. After 1 year, we void the checks and send a letter to the payee notifying them that they have an uncashed check. We also post the list to our website, so anybody go check it out. So we currently have over $800,000 sitting in the tailings account, spread over 3,000 checks. The median check amount is $42, so a majority of these are very, very small. So similar to fine mass money, we require a claim form and an ID or a W-9 to reissue the check. So for the small amount that the check is, it's often too burdensome or inconsequential for people to come and claim. So I'll walk you through a real-life example. We have a tailings check on our list owed to the Bank of Boston from 2002 for a little over $5,000. Bank of Boston no longer exists. It's been acquired twice over, and there's no one that's going to come and claim this check. So by adopting this ordinance, we can move that $5,000 back into the general fund. Ultimately, we can decrease the administrative burden of tracking these checks and the liability of carrying this on our book, but we can also add these funds back into our general fund. So again, happy to answer questions that you guys may have.
President recognizes Counselor Devine.
I'm going to assume that there's laws on how long we have to keep it and how we try and reach out to these unclaimed people?
Yeah, correct. So it would follow the same kind of guidelines. We would attempt to notify the individual. Again, we're updating this on our website, so anyone can come in, fill out the claim form online. We would still require the IDs, but the goal is that after that year's period of time, we would look to reabsorb those funds.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Sounds reasonable anyways.
Yeah, there's a lot. We had a lovely intern over the last summer who researched a lot of these checks, just to kind of get a sense, are they payroll, are they vendors, are they motor vehicle refunds? That's a big bulk of them is motor vehicle refunds. If you would come in, apply for an abatement because you moved, we're gonna send the check to the address on file, but you've moved. So if you don't update your address with the RMV, it becomes really hard to find you.
Yeah.
So we put them online, but again, if you've moved out of state, if you've moved to a different municipality and it's just annoying to come to Quincy for $15, you're never gonna come.
Right, yeah, and it's a nice bit of money that could be used for something more important.
Exactly.
Do we get interest on that money while it sits there?
We do. It's sitting in our general fund, so it's part of those funds. It's a liability on our books. Those funds are our general fund money. So it's certainly in interest-bearing accounts. So we're earning interest on it, but it would be nice to be able to spend it in other ways.
Of course, we do like to spend money. Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
President recognizes Counselor Campbell.
I just wanted to point out how the ingenuity behind this and looking into this, you really should be lauded for that. That's good stuff because this is,
Thank you, I
this is
appreciate
really found money. And it's a revolving thing, right? So next year, a whole new crop of,
Exactly. So the goal is we've alerted people, we've posted on our website, maybe we get the word out there with things like this. Again, they're all online. You've had the year, if you haven't come, we're gonna reabsorb it, and then same thing next June.
great, awesome, great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Motion to approve made by Counselor Liang, seconded by Counselor Campbell. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Ash. Yes. Counselor Campbell. Yes. Counselor Devine. Yes. Counselor DeBona. Yes. Counselor Harris. Yes. Counselor Liang. Yes. Counselor McCarthy. Yes. Counselor Minton. Yes. President Kane?
Yes.
9 members.
Thank you, Molly.
Everybody.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Number 5, 2024-116, ordinance amending municipal code, Chapter 229, pawnbrokers.
President recognizes Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, as I said, this is amending municipal code, Chapter 229 for pawnbrokers. I've worked a little bit with Chief Kennedy and some of his officers, and what this does is our current pawn ordinance is outdated and needs to be updated to bring Quincy into a regional sharing partnership with what's called NESPIN, New England State Police Information Network, and other law enforcement agencies. The new software will provide pawn shop item information across the Northeast region, helping law enforcement identify stolen pawn items easier and faster, so it gives them more tools in their toolbox. Eliminating the third-party data entry of pawned items will result in less input errors and misinformation, resulting in a streamlined approach of pawned items with standardized information. And it connects Quincy with regional partners, also statewide, in the Northeast region, resulting in a lot of positive response. You could have something that was a stolen item from Quincy Pawn and Revere or elsewhere, and be discovered, and vice versa. The ability to have a one-stop shop program will result in faster identification of stolen items and suspect identification. So the end result will hold pawn exchanges liable to who they are buying and selling with. And I want to thank Chief Kennedy, and also a big thank you to Lieutenant Steve O'Donoghue and Detective Siobhan Conley, who they kind of championed this for the chief. And it's all positive things for Quincy PD to get things done more efficiently, more than efficiently than they do right now. So I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve made by Councilor McCarthy, seconded by Councilor Devine. On the motion, President recognizes Councilor Devine.
I think this is a great addition to the municipal code. I spoke with Chief Kennedy today about a different issue, but he brought my attention to it and let me know that Councilor McCarthy would be talking about this today. I think it's great because there's some of these items are probably stolen, and then somebody has something that's, it could be a family heirloom or something that's not replaceable. And now it'll be a lot easier to find it because it will be in that database. So criminals are smart and they take them further away, but this will make us have an ability to reach something much faster. And, you know, these specialty items that may be one of a kind are going to be easier to find. So I'm happy that this is getting taken care of. It's going to take, hopefully help a lot of people. That's it.
Thank you, Councilor Devine. We have a motion on the floor. Motion approved made by Councilor McCarthy, seconded by Councilor Devine. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Ash? Yes. Counselor Campbell? Yes. Counselor Devine? Yes. Counselor DeBona?
Yes.
Counselor Harris? Yes. Counselor Liang? Yes. Counselor McCarthy?
Yes.
Counselor Minton? Yes. President Kane?
Yes.
9 members.
Okay, that is the conclusion of our regularly scheduled agenda. Communications and reports from the mayor, other city officers, and city boards. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. I do have some traffic requests to refer to Ordinance Committee for advertising. Ward 2, Counselor Ash, no parking on the odd side of Chubbuck Street from Washington Street to 60 feet south of Washington Street. Add no parking on the even side of Commonwealth Ave from Southern Artery to 62 feet east of Southern Artery. Add 2 stop signs on Silver Street at Moore Street, creating a 3-way stop sign. Ward 3, Councilor Kane, add handicap parking to 47 Elliott Ave. Ward 6, Councilor Harris, add 15-minute parking on Billings Road from Hancock Street to 65 feet northeast of Hancock Street.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Unfinished business and preceding meeting, seeing none. Reports of committees, seeing none. Presentation of petitions, memorials, and remonstrance. President recognizes Councilor DeBono.
Thank you, Mr. President. A heavy heart to the passing of Edward Cochran. You know, if you know the Cochran family over the years, Eddie's been a great staple of Quincy. As a young man, he began his career at Boston Gear Works after joining the New England Telephone Company for many years. He maintained a close-knit group of friends. He worked in many capacities, but retired in 2005 from AVA as a Tier 3 field engineer and traveled throughout the country as a troubleshooter working on problems that could not be locally fixed. After retiring, Ed worked part-time for 13 years at the Wallaston Golf Club in Milton. In 2022, after passing of the son of Ed, he took over ownership of the popular Rags Tavern and the Alumni Pizza in Quincy Point. Ed was a longtime active member of the Quincy Lodge of Elks. Ed obviously enjoyed traveling, was proud to have visited the 50 states over the course of his life. He enjoyed golfing and was an average Boston sports fan and loved all of his family's dogs and spending time with his friends. Most of all, Ed was devoted to his family, his grandchildren, and most especially his great-grandson, Cole, with whom he had a special relationship with his sporting events and going to them. You know, he was beloved husband for 55 years of the late Elaine Keefe Cochran, a devoted father of Thomas Cochran of Quincy, Jody Borowski, and her husband, Kevin, the late Edward Cochran, and the late Jamie Cochran, which was from the Quincy Police Department, and his late wife, Maria. He also was a loving grandfather to Karina, Jack, Rochelle, Joseph, and he was also grandfather of the late twins Mia and Caroline. He was one of 4 siblings and was the dear brother of Roberta Kinsella of Situate and her late husband, Edward. You know, and just try to keep your thoughts and prayers for the Cochran family. The wake is just tonight over at Sweeney Brothers on Independence Ave, which just recently opened back up last night after 6 months of being closed. So please keep the Cochran family in your thoughts and prayers. Very good family to see you, Quincy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor DeBona. Motions, orders, and resolutions. Scheduling of committee meetings and public hearings. President recognizes Councilor Liang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to go ahead and schedule an ordinance committee meeting on the night of Monday, December 9th. It's not a night that we have a regular council meeting scheduled, and so we'll just start right at 6:30 if that works for folks. It was just something I looked at my calendar. I just want to make sure with my colleagues that night works. Again, it's not on a regularly scheduled council meeting night. It is on what we call like the off nights, right? And so we'd start right at 6:30 if that works for everyone. So Monday, December 9th, if we could schedule that. I think if anything comes up, we do still have time to advertise, but for now, we'll hold that, start at 6:30 for public hearing, and then go into committee meeting to discuss any items that are on the agenda for that evening, including, I hope, the Granite Links one.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Okay, so our next regularly scheduled city council meeting will be Monday, the 2nd of December. We start with a 6:30 PM public hearing with 3 utilities. We go into a 6:45 PM meeting about the tax rate and utilities, and then we go into a 7 PM city council meeting, regularly scheduled. I hope everyone has a lovely Thanksgiving holiday. Thanks for being here tonight. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, made by Councilor Lang. All those in favor? Have a good night.